all the way cranked up.
My
There you
volume's
go.
a
That's
little low.
better.
Is
I
that a
think you're
lot
just far
better
from the
right
mic.
there? Yeah. Once I get
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
mic, it's like you got to be
yeah. That
real
makes sense.
close. So
You got that sweet setup,
all
man. Looks awesome.
right. Yeah, it looks legit. I have to still dial in a couple things on it. So I'm like probably 7 or 8 in right now, and it's starting to get the quality coming out's coming out a lot better. Um, I mean it's clean anyways. It's always whoever I'm podcasting though with their volume's always way higher than mine for whatever reason. It just records like
Interesting.
double. Yeah. So all right. Well, let's just get going. What's your position? Where are you located at? What's kind of going
All
on in
right.
your
So
life?
I joined the Coast Guard, man, about 12 years ago, and left the civilian industry after about 10 years.
Okay.
So, at 14, started doing the. Let me take these off so I don't have the glare. Um, started doing the basic, bussing tables, washing dishes thing for a while, and just kind of just worked my
Yeah.
way in different restaurants in South Florida, and fell in love with it. But I met my wife, and she was working a 9 to 5, and living that life, and it just didn't really line up as most of us, experience. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep. I totally get it.
yeah, it's and she was cool with it. It wasn't like she was like, "You need to figure this out or else," or anything. But I'm starting to now look at different avenues of what I can be
Right.
doing to better suit our lifestyle together. And
Mm-hmm.
a buddy of mine, he was already in the Coast Guard driving. Come here, Yuki. Sorry, he was already in
It's
the
all good.
Coast
It's all
Guard
good.
driving boats and stuff, and he had worked in the restaurants as well. And he got familiar with their food service program, and was like, "Hey, man, you should look into this." And I'm just like, "How good could it
Right.
be?" You know what I mean? Like military food service. Let me put her up, man. Sorry to destroy this. Let's go.
Yeah. No, no, you're good. You're good.
Come on, go lay down. Come on, go lay down. Thank you. Since you're recording, you want to just start it over, man?
No, let's just go. I like it. It's like
So
normal. The whole point of this podcast is to talk to like just people like me, like just chefs in the
right.
industry, not all the glam and glitz and all this stuff. It's to, so we can kind of connect and see how other people are living
Yeah,
their
so that's
lives,
that's me, man.
Like
I'm hanging out here on a Friday morning and chilling with the dog and getting
right.
ready to go on a little weekend vacation. So yeah, it's awesome.
Nice,
But yeah, man.
nice.
So he
So
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so your friend was in the Coast Guard and he was doing
Yeah, and
stuff
he mentioned it
and
to me, and I was like, all right, man, I'll check it out. Kind of like downplaying it, and I started doing some research. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh man, they're doing some cool shit, and
Oh, okay.
so I looked into their program. It's accredited. Everything transfers over to the civilian side for college and everything else. I was like, all right, well,
Hmm.
worst case, if I do it for 4 years and I don't like it, I've got a bunch of undergrad credits because of the programs that they put us through in the Coast Guard. And then I'm going
Hmm.
to get free college through the GI Bill to go to any school that I want in the country or even abroad. Actually, there's things I've learned now since being in that you can utilize that to go travel overseas. I have a buddy that just got back from
Really?
France a couple years ago who went to school out there on the Coast Guard's dime. Man, it's pretty awesome.
Wow. Okay. So the Coast Guard, you went through there. They had a culinary program through the Coast
Correct. Yeah,
Guard.
we have our own culinary program. Yep. So every
Okay.
branch of service
Oh.
has their own what they call a school. Um, we call it a school. Some branches call it AIT. Just depends on what they do. But it's our own program. Like if you wanted to be a machinery technician, then you go to engineering school. If you wanted to be a bosun's mate, you go to like a
Okay.
seamanship boat driving school. If you want to be just every job has their own trade school that you go to. So if you want to be a culinary specialist, they send you to culinary school.
Oh, that's
Yeah, man.
wild. That's cool. I had no idea that even
And the cool
existed.
thing about it is, when I joined, man, I didn't, I'm from South Florida originally. And when I joined, I didn't know much about the Coast Guard as somebody from South Florida probably should know. And
Hmm.
so, like, when I got there, I'm in boot camp doing that whole thing. You get yelled at for 8 weeks, it's, building character, all that good stuff. Um, I don't know what to expect moving forward from that, right? So now I find myself in
Hmm.
Napa Valley, California, going to our culinary school out in Petaluma, and I'm just
Oh
like,
wow.
dude, why? Like, if somebody was able to explain how awesome this was going to be to me before I joined, I would have done it so much sooner. You know? Yeah, man. It
Really?
was just like unreal, like just like the opportunities that were coming with it. We're there doing wine tours and figuring out, pairings and things like that on our weekends. And on the weekdays, we're learning, all the basic culinary techniques and starting from knife cuts to stocks and sauces, meat fabrication, fish
Right.
butchery, it's just everything that you need to know to cook in the industry is being taught to you by trained
Wow.
professionals. Man, it was amazing.
Yeah, and you're in Napa Valley, which
Right,
helps.
right,
I drove through there last year for the first time in my adult life, I say, and it's
yeah.
beautiful. I mean, it's wild. We did that whole trip from like the redwoods down to like San
Oh, that's awesome.
Francisco through the Napa Valley, and it was eye opening. We stopped at what's that Michelin restaurant over there? French
Yep.
Laundry. I didn't go in, but
So it's funny you say
we
that, man.
took
When I was
pictures
in
out
school, we
front.
actually got a reservation to go, and the guy who booked
Okay.
it, I guess, didn't really disclose to everybody in the class how expensive it was going to be.
Yeah, it's like three
Yeah,
hundred
and that's
dollars a
like that's like
person.
without the pairing and everything.
Oh yeah, that's where it
Right. And
starts.
so we're like 3 or 4 days out from this reservation because he booked it like the week we got there. And he's all
Right.
right. So we got this reservation for 8 of us to go, and he's like, all right, it's going to be about like $300 a person. Everyone looked at him like, yo, man, I don't have money like that. And so
We're in
right,
school.
and so I think 2 or 3 of the 8 people or whatever it was backed out, and he was, "Alright, let me call and see if I could change the reservation," and they just laughed at him. They're like, "Man, we cannot knock off people on the reservation. We can redo a reservation for a later date, but we can't, adjust." So that was my opportunity to go to the French
No.
Laundry that fell through. But it's funny you mentioned that, man. We,
Oh man.
during our school out there, we have a lot of guys
Uh,
now that will go and do weekend stages there while they're going through our school because
cool.
it's maybe 15, 20 minutes away from the schoolhouse.
Yep.
And then we also have some, I haven't talked to these guys, but a buddy of mine who was an instructor out there said there's some people that got out of the Coast Guard that now work there full time. Yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
awesome.
Wow. That is pretty awesome. So, is it like a full campus there, or what was the style? Like, what kind of school was it out there?
So
Was it
it's
like cabins, or what? How was it set
it's
up?
a military base. It's our
Oh, it is a military
correct, yeah.
base.
When I say military base, though, not like, tanks and guns and stuff. It's a Coast Guard
Right,
base.
right.
It's it's got all the rules of a military
It's like a
base, but it's got super laid back environment when it comes to your personal life and extracurriculars and things like that. I mean, the base
right.
itself has an e club, which is a bar and a hangout type spot. It's got
It's like a civilian base, kind of, is
yeah, I
what they
mean,
call
it's
it,
definitely
kind of, right?
military. I wouldn't say civilian base. I mean, we're
Right.
military, but
Okay.
not when you think of like going on to an army base or a Marine Corps base. It's not that same
Okay.
militant mindset that's going on there.
Okay.
It's much more chill, I guess you could say, when it comes to
Okay.
that. But yeah, we have a lounge, we have a place to hang out, we have there's a bowling alley, there's a movie theater. I mean, there's everything you need for your day to
Okay.
day, luxuries. But you're not
Okay.
confined to that space by any means. Like you can go out in town and hang out and
Right.
experience Northern California every day after school
Right.
or on the weekends.
Right. Especially being close to San Francisco, the Chinatown there is
It's
nuts if
insane,
you've never
man.
been. Okay, yeah. If it's you can't you can only explain it a little bit to people when they haven't been there, but it's the most authentic thing you can think of. There's like people drying their clothes above their restaurants and hosing out their small little, spots and stuff. It's like, until you go there and experience it, you can just be like, oh, the Chinese food's probably really crazy. It's like, no, the whole culture is like right
It's
there.
wild.
It is wild. So I experienced that for the
It's a
first time
cool
too last
experience,
year.
man.
So
The way I explained that to somebody was one, it makes New York City Chinatown look like Disney World. And
Really?
two, there are people who have not left that Chinatown who
Period.
live there. That's
Nope.
like their only bubble, man. Like they
That's
haven't
it.
even gotten out of there to know what the rest of San Fran is like. Like that's their world.
Nope. Nope. And you see it too. I mean, these people, they live there.
Yep.
They live above their restaurants or in the back of their restaurants, or it's I think it's really cool that it's preserved in that little spot for, you know, for whatever reason, but it when you go there, it's like you're stepping outside of San Francisco into China
Yep.
real quick to buy some stuff, and then you come back out. I mean, whatever you can find or whatever you
Yeah.
want is there.
I've only
So
been there
what
once and I
happened?
was blown away, man. It was
Yeah, yeah. I've never been to New York at all, so I can't compare it to the Chinatown up there, but I imagine it's not a small
no, it's
thing
amazing.
either.
It's amazing.
But
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So what happened after school? Like what after you did your training, your culinary program through the Coast Guard? Is there like placement? Is there what
Yeah,
happens
so
after that?
so getting close to the end of your 12 week, I think it's now 13-week culinary program. They give you a list of billets, job assignments that are available around the country. And so
Hmm.
once you get that list, depending on how you performed in your class, is going to be where you get to choose from on that list. So I was fortunate enough that I got to have my first pick of the list, and I ended up going to a 225-foot buoy tender out of Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. They call it Fisherman's Paradise out there on the Crystal Coast, kind
Okay.
of right between Outer Banks and what's the spot in South Carolina?
I couldn't
Myrtle
tell you.
Beach. So in between Outer Banks and Myrtle
Oh,
Beach,
Myrtle Beach.
right dead set in
Yeah,
the middle
okay.
there. And that was an amazing experience, man. That's what really set the tone for me moving forward in the Coast Guard. When I first joined, like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to do my one tour and get out or make it a career, or, what it was going to be like.
Right. You didn't know what to
No
expect
idea what
really.
to expect. And I kind of am
Right.
glad that I went into it with not low expectations, but no expectations, because it allowed me to
Yep.
form my own opinion as I went.
If more people thought like that just in general, like whether it's for a job or whatever, if everybody goes into something with no expectation, usually it's a better
Right.
outcome. You know what I
And
mean? Because you've worked with people that come in and they're already pissed about something and they don't even know the job yet. You know
they
what
don't
I
give it a
mean?
shot. Right.
So they don't give it a shot. So you got to. I try to take every opportunity with no expectation. Even there's something to be taken from everything, and at least you're not going to be pissed off or disappointed, and you're allowing yourself to actually learn something. And that's really awesome that you did that because a lot of people
Right. No,
wouldn't.
it's a good point,
You
man.
know. But,
That's a really good point because that's the advice I like to give to a lot of new people, especially when they're doing anything, but especially when they're coming into the Coast Guard. Not everybody's first
mm-hmm,
unit experience is always, what they anticipated it to be or what they thought it would be.
of course.
But it's designed intentionally that you're only stationed with the same people, for a few years at a time, and an ever moving, a very dynamic situation. That way, there's no stagnant and no complacency within individual units because we're military assets that are getting a job done. So you can't have
Right.
things kind of sitting still for too long and being the same because you know what happens when people get complacent.
Right.
So I always tell everybody, hey, even if it's not what you expected something to be within the first even 6 months to a year, that whole dynamic is going to change. The person who is leading that unit, the commanding officer, the captain, whatever you want to call him, he's going to be gone in at the most 2 years, and somebody else is going to come in and will change the whole way that the thing flows. So, like you said, like forming your own opinion and letting things kind of play out and take time to see how they go is so important, man. It really is.
Mm-hmm. No, it really is, and I try to tell that to young chefs too because not that I'm like an old chef, but even though I'm 32, I got my first job at 14. I've been doing this for 16 years. I consider
Yeah,
myself
you've
a
been doing it
little
a
bit of
bit.
a
Yep.
veteran, and you go from like your beginning restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, and you're learning kind of the same menu items, but they're different on every single restaurant. And we've all heard from like the new guy, well, that's how we did it over here, and we did this over here. It's like, well, we're not there. Okay, first of all, we're not. We're here. This is how this guy likes to do it, and that's it. There's this when you leave a restaurant, you want to take everything from it and be a sponge, but then when you go to a new one, you want to start that over and do
Right.
it again and use those skills that you've learned over the years, the techniques to fulfill the new place because they are going to do something different and get rid of that. Oh, well, I'm going to go into this already knowing all this stuff. It's like, no, back up, go in knowing
Right.
nothing. And then if you happen to have skills and techniques to make you learning the new place easier, that's the whole point of the
Right.
experience level. You know what I mean? Instead of going, oh well, no, that's the wrong way to do it. It's like, no, that's the way we do it
Right.
here. And instead of it being a negative thing to you, you go in with no
Yeah.
opinion and you go, oh, that's how you do marinara sauce here. Okay, cool. Versus, oh no, I didn't never did it like that before. It changes your whole outlook on when you're going to do new experiences. And that's not even in just cooking. That's a life trait. You want to take things positively. You don't want to, get all you don't want to go in with these like negative aspirations about stuff. You want to be able to learn, and you can't do that
Yeah.
if you already have a preformed opinion about
Well,
it.
your guard
So,
goes up, and when your guard's up, you can't take
yeah.
anything in. You know.
Yep, you can't take anything. And I think we all do that when we're starting because it's new or just out of high school or whatever and all these crazy places, and we're learning how to be an adult and pay bills and have responsibilities, and all this stuff is happening in such a short period of time that your workplace becomes like, you think that everybody's out to get you. But it's in the end of the day, nobody's out to get your job. Nobody's out to get your stuff. As long as you go in and do your thing, you
There's
have
enough
nothing to
jobs for
worry about.
everybody out there right now,
There's plenty of jobs for everybody
especially in the
out
Coast
there,
Guard. If
and
anybody
nobody's
wants to
gunning
come
for
and hang out with
yours.
us, man.
Yeah, and you know what? And at the end, we'll plug everything at the end. We can really push that message too for somebody that doesn't really quite know, and that to know that the Coast Guard has a culinary program that you can sign up for and do, and not put yourself in a bunch of debt and really figure it out. That's an opportunity that people
Yeah,
should
it's
know
like the
about,
exact
and in
opposite
my
of putting
opinion.
yourself in debt. I mean, we're doing 30 to 40,000 dollar bonuses. 30 if you have zero culinary experience right now. 40 if you have a
Right,
degree. Um,
right,
and then the list goes on when it comes to the benefits, man. I mean, we could buy houses with $0 down with a VA loan, no
right,
money down, and they'll
right,
sell you a house. I mean, it's unbelievable.
right.
And then you get a housing allowance to pay for the mortgage on top of that. Full health
Yeah.
care for me and my
No.
family. I've never had a medical bill. My wife's never had a medical bill since I've been in.
Yep.
I
Yep.
get 30 days paid
So
time off a year.
right. So do you ever have to go out of country or anything, or do they station you, do they give you the pick? Do they station you places? How does being in the Coast Guard as a culinary person, how does that
Yeah, so as
work?
far as being stationed outside the country, we have a few assets in Bahrain, but it's a voluntary program, and a lot of guys are like lined up to go do it because it guarantees that after you do that, you get your top pick of any other job, and it's only a 1 year assignment. Plus, all your money is tax
Okay.
free while you're over there. There's a lot of perks to doing it, and it's in a
Right.
very friendly, safe zone. I mean, the waters you're patrolling are, think about it. You're out in the Middle East patrolling the ocean. So I'm sure they come across some stuff that, or could be pretty threatening at times. Um, but as far as like where you're living and the way you're living is, pretty awesome from what I've been told. I've never been out there. I've never volunteered to go out there. All of my work has kept me stationed pretty much on the East Coast of the United States by choice. That's where my family's at. That's where I want to be at, with the exception of the school I
Perfect.
went to, obviously out in California.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like where you get to go station, I mean, we have Coast Guard units all up and down the East Coast, West Coast, all through the Gulf, and then even some inland as well. I was actually stationed in Owensboro, Kentucky for a bit on a river tender that patrolled the Ohio River, um, pretty much just setting buoys through the river. And I cooked independently on that
Oh,
boat for a
crazy.
crew of 19 guys. So I was pretty much a private chef on a floating food truck for 3 years, where I did all my own shopping, all
Right.
my own menus, all my own cooking, and then I had someone help me with the dishes every day, which was awesome. Yeah. So it's like
Right.
the best thing in the world. And it's cool because, that
Yeah.
tight-knit crew becomes family, and,
Of
you know
course.
what they like to eat, you know what they don't like to eat, and then you also try to challenge them to try new exciting things, and, um, it's not just we're not just heating up,
Yeah.
MREs and bulk food, The
Yeah.
biggest unit that we have, um, is a land based unit in Virginia, which is at another schoolhouse that we have where we obviously cook for the Coast Guard men and women that work and train there, and they'll do like 500 lunches a day for 500 members. But there's 30 cooks
Okay.
putting that out, and that's one unit. Every unit that I've been on, when I was in North Carolina, I had 50 people on my boat, and there was four of us cooking for 50 people. When I was stationed in New
Right.
Jersey, I was there twice. I was on 110-foot patrol boats. We would go out for 3 or 4 days at a time, and I cooked for 16 people by myself for those two tours. And then when I was in Kentucky, like I mentioned, I was on the river tender there, and I had 19 people. I did that for 3 years and cooked for them independently. Since then,
Mm.
I've worked myself into a really awesome job. Your first question you asked me, I haven't even answered yet, not purposely, but so my
It's all
role
good.
currently is I'm the executive chef for the Department of Homeland Security Executive Dining Facility here in Washington D.C. Still in the Coast Guard, and all the chefs that I work with are all in the Coast Guard. So it's a special program that we have within the Coast Guard. It's actually called the Special Command Aid Program. So what that
Okay.
is pretty much we're private chefs for high-ranking officers. So all the admirals in the Coast Guard get a special command aid that work inside their government quarters, where we not just cook their meals for them and host banquets and receptions for them, but we also maintain all their entertainment spaces of their quarters. We take care of their uniforms. We're kind of like their glorified butler in a way, for lack of better words.
Yeah, like
Um,
what's that word?
yeah, concierge. That's a
Concierge.
great way to
You
put
know,
it.
you
Yep, yep.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, concierge. You kind of take care of all of their outside,
yep.
needs and make things a little easier
Exactly,
for
and we
them.
do, like I said, we do a ton of receptions and things. So I'm in that program, but I run a full service restaurant that is in the Department of Homeland Security headquarters building, and so we're constantly cooking for the secretary, the deputy secretary, all the higher ups at DHS, and we have a spot that they come in and eat lunch at every day, and it's
Okay.
pretty awesome, man. And then on top of that, we host different receptions for foreign delegates and all that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, that's. I was gonna ask about like the food and what you cook and the situations. I know you said you worked on a few of
Right.
the boats. What's the kitchen like on those boats? Is it like pretty dinky? I've been on some nice yachts, but their kitchen's dinky,
Yeah.
And then I've worked on some stuff with not so bad
Right.
galleys. So what's a galley like on like a 16-person boat that
So
you're on?
I would equate it to that of like a food truck, man. You got like your little walkway
Okay.
in the center in front of you. You have a two burner electric, eye stove, and then like an 18-inch griddle, and then a regular size oven that holds half sheet pans. Um,
Okay.
and then you'll have a, just like KitchenAid type mixer,
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
stuff, and maybe 6 to 8 feet of counter space to work on, but it's just you in there cranking it out.
6 to 8 feet's
I've
not that
worked in
bad.
way smaller conditions, not on a boat before. You know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I always have to ask because, so Pete, the guy in the group, he works on a lot of
Yeah, I know
boats
Pete well.
too, and yeah, so we always bounce back and forth because he's on the other coast of me, about 2 hours away. But whenever I'm on a boat, like I'll send him a picture and I'm like, "Yo, how's your galley?" And he'll be like, "Oh man, that's not a bad galley you're in," or
Yeah,
whatever. Because like I said, you could be on a 100-foot yacht that's $10 million and the kitchen sucks on it, or you could be on a 40-foot yacht or whatever, 60-foot yacht, and the kitchen's really
right.
nice. So it just depends on when they built it,
Who
who
cared about
cared,
right?
yeah, who cared about it or not. And some of them are just unreal that, granite floors and all this stuff.
Right.
But when you're on a boat, it's just a different world. And it sounds like on yours everything's typically
It's all
electric. Is that
electric. Yep,
what's
everything's
it's all
electric, and that's
electric, no
for
gas.
safety purposes when it comes to
Right.
because we're our own fire team, we're our own safety team, just like when you're working on the yachts. The crew of the yacht is
Yep.
taking care of all that. So we try to limit any sort of possibilities for casualties and things like that. Now, um, not to say that some of them don't have induction burners, which obviously is still electric, but a little bit more efficient than
Right.
those eye plates that are built into these
Mm.
flat top ranges.
Oh, you're talking about those like the black you're like
Yeah,
cast
yeah,
iron plates
exactly. That's like
almost.
0 to
Oh,
a
okay,
100 is
okay.
like, it's either not hot or just burning everything. You gotta really learn how to throttle
Okay,
those bad
yeah.
boys back, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, those are challenges that, people don't think of when they're going into the culinary
Right,
world. They go and work in some restaurants and they're fully equipped and they have, rationales and combi ovens and all this stuff. I don't even really have much experience with any of
right.
that stuff. Most of my kitchens have been pretty, pretty basic. Not that they're not fully equipped, but like,
Yeah, not state of the art,
they're not, yeah, they're not like country club kitchens where like this shit gets used
Right.
twice a year, you know? So, but having like been on boats and stuff like that, those are just things that in the culinary world you don't think when you're starting that you're going to end
Right.
up at, and then when you do, you're like, oh shit, I'm cooking in the
Yeah.
water right now.
No, you're
you
right,
know?
man. Yeah, and it's the boat thing is cool. So I know there's a lot of people who are interested in that industry, um,
Mm-hmm.
because of the ever changing schedule, and you get to kind of pick your schedule and everything else, and
Mm-hmm.
that's exciting to people, and that's what's cool about doing the small boats in the Coast Guard is for 3 years you're attached to that boat, 2 or 3 years depending on where you're located. And during that time, you're traveling all over the area. Some bigger boats will go overseas, for short amounts of time, during a patrol. So you get to see the world, and then you get to cook for your crew of people, and you get to cook whatever you want. So to backtrack a little bit, what you were saying about when we're bouncing around from restaurant to restaurant, you're kind of cooking the same things all the time, maybe with a little bit of different variety. In the Coast Guard, we're never cooking
Mm-hmm.
the same two things twice. Like every day is a different meal
Really?
that's getting put out. And same in the position that I'm in now in DC. We cycle our menu every week. Every week we have a brand new menu that
Awesome.
we're offering our guests. Now we have a few staple items that are always going to be on there,
Of course. Of
but more than
course.
half the menu switches out every week. So it's constantly challenging the guys that I work with, and
Keeping your brains
right.
moving.
So every Wednesday, I go to my team and I'm like, all right, what do you guys want to make next week? And then we talk about, menu development and we work stuff out. And then I start shopping for everything that we need on that, Friday. So they get everything and can kind of start, getting things going. And then come Monday, we roll out that new menu and they run it through the week.
Awesome.
So it seems like every day I turn around, it's Wednesday and we're developing a new menu, but it's awesome because
I
it
know that is.
keeps everybody sharp, man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of like quarterly like new sheets as new menu sheets or whatever. And keeping those that's so for me I used to change we call them fresh sheets. So we'd have our typical menu and then on every table we'd have like, a small menu that had like maybe 5 items on it, right? And then quarterly we would change that, and the things that didn't sell on the regular menu we'd pull off, and the things that sold really good on the fresh sheet
That's
we'd put
smart. Yeah.
on. And then the same five or the and then every quarter we had a different seasonal or whatever, um 5 things, just so that we could try stuff out without stressing everybody out and changing like the whole menus. And I mean, this is obviously for a large group and large, restaurant day-to-day running. It's totally different than the catering, which is what I do now, or cooking for people like you do now. It's just, it's
Right.
different, but it's a huge benefit to be changing your menu at least quarterly or more, or weekly or whatever, because then people aren't getting stagnant. You know what I mean? When people get stagnant, they start looking for things that are wrong. And for me, I like to keep learning, so I want to assume that my staff likes to keep learning, so it keeps them busy, keeps them fresh, keeps all of us fresh, and that's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's been great, man. I
So
got an amazing team that I get to work with every day that is so talented, and it's wild to see that everywhere we go, since I've been in, I run into so many talented chefs in the Coast Guard. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it is because of people getting kind of burnt on the industry. There's a lot of guys out there that are
Mm-hmm.
talking about the work life balance and how we can make it better. I got a chef that's down in Farmington Country Club, not too far from here. Is a good buddy of mine, Mike Matarazzo. He's a big pusher of the work life balance and trying to remold the mindset of a chef that it doesn't need to be 80 hours a week getting the shit kicked out of you in order for you to be a badass in the industry and be successful. Yeah, we've all done
Right.
that, but like, is that what the stigma needs to be? And I'm a true believer that the answer is no. Like, it's not. So when you're able to give people the opportunity to be creative and have fresh ideas and make new food and make
Mm-hmm.
exciting food and not be just killing themselves doing the same old grind day after day, it creates an environment
Right.
that is very inviting for people to want to be there. So I go into work, man, every day. My team's in the kitchen. They got the music going. They're singing. They're dancing. They're having a good time. They're
Yeah.
producing, but they're enjoying what it is they do because I give them the creative
Right.
freedom to be able
100%.
to do whatever they want to do. And not everybody has that luxury because you have a
Mm-mm.
menu that's the menu. So you're making the same thing over and over and over again. And
Over and
I've
over and
never
over
had to
again.
deal with that in
Yeah.
the 12 years that I've been in the Coast Guard, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And I'm yes and no about about how like hard you have to work and if you have to pull the long hours and stuff, because yeah, we've all done it for sure, but for me it just depends on where realistically you want your career to end
Right.
up. Right. So as far as I'm concerned, a line cook should never have to pull those crazy hours. That's not
Right.
for them. They're our worker bees. They're the ones that need to be rested, and the quality of life needs to be there, and we want them to want to come to work. The long hours and all that stuff, that should fall on the leaders really, because they're the ones driving the business. And if they want to drive that it's not our cook's job to drive our business. You know
Right.
what I mean? So we want them to work hard. We want them to work efficient. We want them to enjoy themselves. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to drive our business. And a lot of, I don't want to say everybody or whatever, but like a lot of cooks want to skip that line cooking thing into the chef thing, into the owner thing, and not having had experienced that working 80 hours and not having experienced that stress and the weight of everybody on them. They want to skip all that and go to it. So that's where I think that some people do need to know that
I,
grind.
I agree with
It
that. I
doesn't
like
need
that.
to be the norm. It doesn't need to be the norm. It doesn't need to be like you're expected to do this and I'm going to underpay you. So blah, blah. No, it doesn't need to be that. But if you want your career to end up in a leadership position, in an executive chef position, in an owner position, for you to skip through and go from your 40-hour work week to business owner, you're setting yourself up to fail. Because I've always been a fan of like my whole family were like super hard workers, and I'm not gloating or anything like that, but like 50 or 60 hours a week is a norm for me. It's not that's
Right.
typical, and not everybody's like that, but everybody wants to be in the position of owning or being in charge. But then when they get to that where it's mandatory and there's nothing you can do and it's your business and you can't shut it off and you're responsible for your employees and you're responsible for keeping everybody busy, and you don't get the luxury of working 40 hours a week anymore. Even if you're physically not in there,
So my question
there's a
to
lot
you
of
on that
pressure. Yeah.
though is, how
Mm-hmm.
does that cycle get broken where you're not
Right.
where the person in charge is the one putting in all those hours, because then at some point that line cook is no longer that person, so then they're no longer getting the experience that
Right.
you talk about to be able to do that. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Right.
And you
It
know
is, and that's why this podcast for me is I'm learning everybody's stories and things, because I want to see what people's opinions are on it, and I know there's people that want a lot but want to do little for it, and then I know people that work their ass off and never get there.
right.
So
I think
this
something
I want to.
that could be said about that though is the level of responsibility that somebody has
Hmm.
will encourage them to put in more time because they have
Right.
an investment in it, you know?
Of
Like
course.
with my current position, right? I'm there about 60 hours a week on maybe 50 hours a week on average. I do not need to be there
Hmm.
that long. We're not even open during that amount of time. But there's a lot of
Of
things
course.
that I'm doing behind the scenes in order to make it
Yep.
better because I have that ownership of the place and I want it to be as close to perfect as it can be for me, for my team, for our guests, for the
Right.
entire organization, right? So
Right.
with that though, eventually I'm going to get to a point where it's running at the capacity that I want it to run at and it's not going to
Yep.
require that much time to be able to have to make that happen, right? I'm gonna get everything
Yeah. To keep it
right.
going.
So it's gonna be running. So then what? Do I sit back on my hands and say, okay, it's good to go, that's it, and just let it go? No. People like me are
No,
going to now look
you
for the
have to be
next
doing
thing to
something.
try to build on it and do
Right.
that. I don't think that's something that everybody possesses.
Right. And I think that it's important that people hear
Right.
that because a lot of people think they possess it. And and I don't ever want to put anybody down. I want to build everybody up. But sometimes you can be a really great leader and not so good at the job that you're leading. And then sometimes you could be the best at your job, but you're a
Right.
terrible leader. And a lot of people need to hear that because
Well,
not, just because you're a really good chef doesn't mean you can run a
look
restaurant.
at like
And
sports,
just,
for
yeah,
example. Like baseball is a prime example. I don't know if you're a
right.
baseball fan or not. Some of the best coaches
Yeah, a
in
little bit. Yeah.
baseball, the best managers, the best hitting coaches, they were not the best players,
Of course not.
but they understand the fundamentals, they understand the game, and they have a different mindset because not everybody can do both. You can't always teach, you can't always, perform. Sometimes it's the people that are in those positions that aren't the best, but they need good people to be able to lean on to get the
Right.
best out of it. So, I mean, there's the old saying,
Right.
if you want to be successful, surround yourself with people that are better than you, you know?
Period. Period. There's no
Right,
threat there. And baseball's good too cuz maybe they know all the fundamentals and they know how to win, but they're, physically or mentally not able to be in the moment doing the work to get there, right? So that makes them a leader and then I know how to do this. I can't do it physically myself, but if you guys listen to me, I will make us
right.
successful type of thing and gaining that trust from your staff and stuff is
Yeah,
is
because that's where the
huge.
leadership challenge
Um
comes in is that you have to know that,
yeah.
okay, I'm no longer the one doing this. I need to give them the
Mhm.
tools and avenue to be successful, but then I have
Exactly.
to allow them to do the things that are gonna make them successful. I
Yep.
cannot
You
control
can't
that,
like hold their
you know?
hand and hey, do this and then watch them and make them all nervous over
Right,
their back. You got to let them kind of find their thing and even if it's not exactly as you want it and but it's still coming out good or whatever, you have to give them a little bit of
right.
discretion because, otherwise you've worked for people that are like hovering over you or all this. You're like, whoa, give me some
Oh, and I catch
space.
myself, I walk through the
I
kitchen
know,
of,
I do it too.
more I'm curious of just what's going on, not so much that I am like
Yeah,
dying to correct it, but then as soon as I see something
yeah,
that's happening, it's like it's not so much it's not how I would do it, it's like if it's not
yeah,
right, you know what I mean? Then I'm gonna step in
right.
and say something, but
I call it riding the
yep,
line.
that's
That's what I
exactly
call it.
what it
It's you're
is,
riding the
man.
line. You're riding the line between friend and coworker
Yep,
and boss. If you can't get too far over on the friend coworker side because then people start not respecting your position. But you can't get so far over on the boss side that everybody's pissed off at you all the time. I tell my
it's the
staff all the
hardest thing in
time,
the
it's really
world,
hard.
man.
I gotta ride this line because I don't want you guys pissed. And I'm straight up. I just tell them that I'm like, I don't want you guys pissed off at me all the time, but I also need things done a certain way. So anything I can do for you guys to help me do that,
Yep.
let me know. If not, this is kind of like it's what it is. It's
It's
really
hard.
hard.
It's the hard it's the
It's
hardest thing
really
in the
hard.
world, man. Because like, we just
Right.
it's what we do and it's what the reason why you get into these positions is because you're pretty good at what it is that you do. So you wanna make other people you wanna build them up and get them there as well, and
Right.
sometimes in a world that is a skill based. Well, I mean, our job is a skill based job. There's some people that will just never get it. It is what it is, right?
Right.
Like they can have
It is
basic
what it is.
fundamentals and skills, but when you find someone that you know has all this potential,
Right.
it's like I just want to
Yep.
give them everything I possibly can to be successful. Sometimes it comes with a
Yeah.
little bit of micromanaging, and it's the worst. It sucks, you
Yep.
know. But I think there's also ways, like you said, you're upfront with them and you let them know, you articulate to them that, hey, like, I know I could be a pain in the ass. And if I'm being a pain in the ass, turn to me and be like, Chef, you're being a pain in the ass. Like, let me
Yeah.
know,
Tell
like, and I'll
me.
back off.
Right.
Or if the
Right. Or
situation
I'll
does not
judge the
call for that and you tell me
situation.
that, I might tell
Yeah.
you to fuck off.
Yeah, it all depends. And I know when I'm being a pain in the ass, and sometimes I'm just in the mood to be a pain in the ass, but sometimes those days are needed to bring everybody back into,
Right.
scope, cuz
It's
even
a
as
humbling thing
leaders,
too.
things, it's a humbling
Right.
thing, but people, we let people get away with a lot more than they think, and then they think that we're riding them, but it's like, no, we've let this go a little bit, and now it's going a little too far, and I got to straighten everybody
Right.
back out again. And so some of the times those pain in the ass days, are positive for everybody because it makes
Right.
everybody fall back in line, and people don't realize that they get
Well, one
out.
of the things that
So,
I've done is kind
hey,
of
we're
challenge myself and
uh
to
huh.
allow my team to have that, that freedom. And I won't even step foot in the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen until service. I will literally sit
Oh yeah,
back and knock out paperwork and do the things I have to do. When I have like I have two other kitchen leads that are in there with the team, right?
of
So
course,
I put my trust in them that they're gonna make sure that they're keeping up on
as you
everything.
should.
And I'll stand back and then I'll come out when food starts coming out and just observe and see what's going on. And I'm
Yep.
never disappointed. I'm never disappointed in that.
Right.
The only time I ever get
Yep.
disappointed is when I'm in there while they're cooking, while they're prepping, before it's finalized, because I they are their own toughest critics, and they're going to make sure a good product
Right.
comes out at the end of the day. So if I'm tasting it only
Right.
3/4 of the way in and it's not seasoned properly or it's not finished or it's whatever, now they're just getting discouraged. So I try really hard
Right.
to, hey, let me just try the final
It's
product,
hard, man. Yep, it is. It's
Yeah.
really hard. All right. Well, I think we've going for a little bit. How do you want to close this thing
I
out? You
want
want
to
to
I
tell
want to talk
people
about a
where to
couple of
find you, Coast
the
Guard?
options with the Coast Guard, if that's cool with you, man.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Let's do
Sure.
it. I'm
So, like
100% for
I
that.
mentioned a lot, I don't want to beat the horse at all, but the program that we have that we're offering right now is way better than what I had when I came in, and what I had was amazing. We still have our culinary school out in California, still the same type of thing where once you go to school and you finish, you get to go out to the fleet and do your thing. But these bonuses didn't exist when I joined. So to come right out starting with $30,000 to $40,000 in your pocket is just such a good leg forward. The other big one that we have that we didn't have when I joined is what's called lateral accessions. Now, lateral accessions is coming online like yesterday, pretty much. And what that's doing is taking industry professionals and allowing them to segue into the Coast Guard's culinary program. And we're taking into consideration their previous experience to give them a higher rank when they come in. So when I joined as,
Mm,
as an E1 when I went to boot camp, came out of boot camp as an E2. When I was in school, I became an E3. Then I went out to the fleet as an E3, then became an E4. And then another couple years later became an E5. So I'm like 3 years in, two
right.
years in by the time I make E5. And we're now allowing people with experience to join as an E5. So you're pretty much
Wow.
skipping 4 pay grades and going right into being an E5 if you have industry experience behind you. And that could even be increased to an E6 if you have any sort of prior military service, any
Oh
higher
wow.
executive level leadership positions. It's on a case by case basis, man. Um,
So how do they figure that out? Is there like a placement test? How do they know, even though that you've gone through the program, how do they judge
So
you
what
on
it's going
that?
to be is when you go to your recruiter to say, "Hey, I want to join and I want to join as a cook," you're going to provide them with your resume, and then that resume
Mm-hmm.
is going to go to a panel of other culinary specialists like myself, who are leaders amongst our rating. And when I say like myself, not me specifically. The job that I'm currently in has nothing to
Mm-hmm.
do with selecting this stuff, but people of the same rank
Right.
that I am that are in those positions that
Positions.
run our rating, right? And they're
Okay.
going to look over it and look over the skills that you possess, the jobs that you've had, the things that you've done, and that will determine if you get that. And um, based on the conversations I've had with the right people that I network with and that I work with day to day, um, it's going to be happening, and it's going to be pretty liberal with that. That allowing that to happen, because if
Right.
you have the ability to cook, that's what it's taking you to get to that E5 level. And then at that E5 level, now you're going to learn the Coast Guard leadership sides of things that will help you get to the E6, E7 level. So the way
Okay.
I'm seeing it, man, is if you got good culinary experience and you're a squared away person, you're joining as an E5 right off the bat, starting to make really good money, having all these benefits that I talked about, have this bonus. So you don't have to,
Mm-hmm.
look at it as you wasted X amount of years in the industry. For me, I'm not saying I wasted those years because I gained invaluable knowledge and experience over that time, but 10 years in the
Of
industry
course.
translated to nothing for me when I joined the Coast Guard. I started at the very bottom, going through the same culinary
Yeah.
program, learning knife cuts that someone who's never touched a knife had, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that'll be all
Awesome.
accelerated. Boot camp would be accelerated. If somebody's joining at 35 years old who's got life experience, they're not going to send them to boot camp with 18-year-olds who don't know how to do laundry. They're going to go through an accelerated program.
Right.
They're going to be treated as an adult. And the same thing with our school. You'll fast track through our culinary program if you've already had culinary school and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
that's the big one, man.
Yeah,
That's
no, that's
huge.
that's really, yeah, that is huge. And you know what? It'd be really cool to do this again, in a little while, maybe a couple months or whatever, and talk about it again, just because I think people should know about, especially if you can join up to 30. What's the age that you
So
can
there's
join up
waivers,
to?
man. We've I had a buddy that joined. He was almost 40, man. He was knocking the door on 40. I think he was.
Right. And there's not another branch of military that'll
No,
allow
there's
that.
not. The army might have some waivers in place. I've heard of that happening. I do have a buddy that
Mm-hmm.
that joined the Navy at 40, but it's very few and far between. But in the Coast Guard, we have lots of
Right.
waivers in place. Um, there's our tattoo policy is very lax, as you can see. Most branches you can't have visible tattoos.
Right. Right.
Now you still can't have face tattoos and things like that, but
Of course
um,
not.
you know if you want to do it and you're interested in doing it, I'd highly recommend reaching out to either a local recruiter, myself, which when we
Right.
share this, we could put my contact information. And I'm not a recruiter
Of
by any
course.
means, and the only skin I have in this game is just trying to better the rating we call our jobs ratings. Better our culinary, our workforce, and strengthen that so we can
Yep.
get more people out there doing the job and getting the same experience that I've been so fortunate to have these last 12 years.
Right, and it's also important because there's a lot of jobs, especially in our industry, they don't have benefits, they don't have health insurance, they don't have retirement plans, they don't have all of these things. And if you can join into your 30s, you're and you've been doing this a while, and maybe you're just not getting the positions that you wanted, and maybe you're just not, filling whatever void it is. This is a really good opportunity for those people too, because now you can put yourself in a position where maybe I'm not going to be the executive chef of the Ritz
Right.
Carlton, or maybe I'm not going to own some Michelin star thing, but I love what I do and I want to keep doing it, but I want to get a little bit of benefits and set myself up for the rest of my life, type of thing.
And
And I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to do
it's the
something
most
like that.
amazing opportunity, man. And in the
Yeah.
benefits thing, one thing that I didn't mention when you said retirement benefits. So when I joined, we had what's called the legacy retirement. So I have to do 20 years in order to collect a pension. They've made that better.
Okay.
Now, you don't have to do a minimum of any years to get a pension. Even if you just did your 4 or 6 year enlistment, is my cat's in the background. It's funny. Even if you did a 4 or 6 year enlistment, um, the Coast Guard is now matching you up to 5% of your contributions into your 401k, and then you will get
Okay.
that when you retire. When you get out, you will be able to still build on that and collect that money. So before, you got zero if you didn't do 20 years. You could do 18 and a half,
Right.
19 years and get out and you get no retirement. Now they're allowing you to do a
Wow.
minimum amount of time and still collect a benefit from that.
At least something from when you were
Correct.
there.
So on top of your free college, on top of your VA loan where you can buy a house with zero down, on top of all these things,
Hmm.
now they're matching you in a 401k at 5% for no reason, just doing that. And then you can also
Yeah.
collect the
Yeah.
full retirement once you get done at 20 years. There's now still a pension for that on top of the percentage they matched the whole time. So I don't have that. I wasn't able to get that because that happened long after I started.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I think this is really cool, and I think people are going to really enjoy, hearing about this because this isn't a typical, I don't. You're the first person I've met that works in the Coast Guard as a chef, so I hope people can take something from this and learn from it, and I really
I
appreciate it.
appreciate your time, Chef. Thank you so much for having me on, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna stop recording, and for whatever reason, it's like it's been skipping like the last couple minutes every time. So I'm gonna let it
That
record for a
way it
little bit.
captures it or whatever.
Um, yeah, I don't know what the deal is. The last couple of them have been like it gets if it's like 20 minutes, it'll be like
Yeah, let
17
it go because
when I
that's the
download
important
it.
part at the end there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
it's like God. So I had to cut two of them off early, which is not a big deal, but it still is like annoying. So I'm just gonna let it record a little bit. So, but yeah, man, thanks. I really appreciate you being on here, and have a good day and all that stuff. And again, once I put these out, it might not be out
that's
for a
fine.
while. I can't tell you. But when I do, I have all the names and everything. I'll reach back out to you to make sure I can get all your plug
Cool.
information.
I
Where
appreciate
you're
that.
at,
And
your
then
name. People can
just
tag
for
it.
full transparency, if you're cool with it, what I'll probably be
Yeah.
doing once this comes out is
Uh huh.
recording sound bites of me speaking like 15, 20
That's
seconds
fine.
and then putting them over our food videos. And I'll text you when we get done so you can check out our culinary program page and you'll see what I'm
Yeah,
talking
for
about. A
sure.
buddy of mine, he was just on a podcast recently and he was talking a lot about our continuing education program. And
Right.
so like I pulled like I don't know, a 20-second thing of that and just put it over all this food stuff of him talking about. So are you cool with that?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
All
cool.
right,
Yeah,
sweet.
absolutely.
Yep. And then also, I mean, when I
Absolutely.
share that kind of stuff, I'll plug your podcast and everything else. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
rip you off or anything, but you know,
Oh yeah. No, no.
our
I'm
recruiting
good.
thing is tough, man, because when we have recruiters out in doing recruiting, they're not cooks recruiting cooks. They're everybody
Right.
recruiting everybody, and so they're not talking the language. They're not in the industry. So whenever we have opportunities like this to get us that are with from the civilian industry and now doing it in the military to
Right.
be able to try to get that point across to civilian chefs saying, hey man,
Hmm.
there's an option out there that's really fucking cool. We love to
Yeah.
take it.
No, I
So
mean it really is. I think that it's no bullshit. That's there's not a lot of opportunities out there like that, and a lot of people that started in the industry like early on, like me, I was like 14, 15. But like had I not found the opportunities, had I not been in the positions, and now I'm in my low 30s, this would have been a perfect option for somebody who's a career chef. Maybe things didn't pan out as well as they should have, and they can still get themselves
right.
into a position where they have some sort of life, have some sort of benefits, can take care of their families. They're not getting, bullshit wages. They're not getting. I think that this opportunity needs to be talked about for sure for people.
Yeah, I've owned now, this is the fourth house that we've bought and lived in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've never needed anything that I couldn't obtain in life as far as basic necessities.
Right.
I got they pay for me to live. They pay for all. It's amazing. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't grasp it until I joined. And so my goal is to try to
Right.
explain it to people so they can see it. But
Right.
we live in a world
Right.
that it's hard to get points across until somebody experienced things. It's like the whole "you don't know how good you
Yep.
have it" statement.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah. Well, no, I do because I worked for it. A lot of people, and not
Right.
everybody, but it's like I do know. But it's hard to also make it sound like it's so great, but it's not a
Right.
freebie
Or it's a
either.
scam, right? If
You
something's
have,
too good to be true,
or
it
it's a
probably is.
scam.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
don't get
it's
me
like
wrong. There's
they pay for your house
I've had
and
shitty
yeah.
days, and we all have shitty days,
Oh,
but
of
the big
course, it's a
picture,
part of
I
it.
look back at the time that I spent grinding in a restaurant to now, and it's like I would trade for this life a million times over.
Of course.
It's amazing. It's a crazy experience that I get to have, and I can control to a certain extent, my future based on my own performance. Like in the civilian world, I
Right.
mean, how many you said you started working at 14? Same with me, right? So I
Right.
would watch like especially I did a lot of front of the house too. And I would watch like
Uh-huh.
I get shitted on by the GM or whoever, but then the cute chick working the
Right.
bar got whatever she wanted, even though she didn't do
Right.
any of the work that I was doing. She didn't restock shit. She didn't do
Right.
side work. But whenever she
Right.
wanted time off, she had it. Whenever she wanted the best schedule, she had it. I'm like, this is
Yeah,
bullshit,
yeah. It is. And that's how this industry, unfortunately, a lot
right?
of it works. And
It's
it's
there's
not performance
favoritism.
based.
There's well,
Yep.
in this world that I'm in now, it is 100% performance based because you control your own
Right.
advancement. You control your own your own duty stations where you're getting stationed based on your performance, based on the jobs that you sign up for. You sign up for a tougher job, well, your next one you'll get to have full pick of where you go. It's just kind of the way it rolls. So it's incentive
Yep.
based, and I think that's the best thing when you're in control of your own destiny.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
man.
awesome. All right. So unfortunately, that recording was with another podcast software that I was using at the very beginning, and it got cut off. And Scott was super awesome to talk to. I'm gonna try to get him on again now that I'm a little bit more set up and kind of know what I'm doing, and hopefully we'll get a good closing out. But some really good stuff in his podcast. It was really awesome talking to him, and you know, seeing another opportunity that isn't really out there for being a chef and not going through like your normal, just kind of like your normal flow of how you would start as a dishwasher, go to culinary school, go to a chef. There's another avenue, and I think the Coast Guard is a really good opportunity for people that are maybe in their low 30s. They've been doing it for a while. Their opportunity really hasn't hit them yet. I think that there's more to learn from him about it and just his experiences in it. That we recorded that like I don't know, a year and a half ago, and so I'm gonna try to get him back on again and just kind of see some more info about that. And I think that there's some more stuff for people to learn about it. It's super exciting to hear everybody's experiences and the ways they kind of fit into this culinary world, and I'm looking forward to it. So sorry the video cut out. Again, we're still trying to figure things out. I just want to get some content out there, get some old recordings out there, and got some new content coming up. Again, a lot of it has to do with my business, but if anybody's interested in being on the podcast, reach out. We're gonna get started. I want to talk to people of all avenues, of all ranks, of all skills. You don't have to be some big celebrity or anything. I'm just a regular guy, a chef, have a catering company, and I like talking to people. So let me know if you want to be on the podcast, or any other podcasts that you can point out that are good culinary podcasts or business podcasts. I'm all ears. All right, have a good one, guys. Thanks.